So, how are drones used in archaeology?
In various different ways. Everything from a simple photo, just to take an elevated photo of a site. That's how I started about 5 or 6 years ago. We were digging trenches, we were revealing walls. How do you show that? Well, I started with broomsticks, then painters' poles, then kites. But then when there wasn't enough wind, the kite didn't work. So then I got into self-building these unmanned aerial vehicles. Most consumers, or most of the public, call them drones, but we call them something, a little less daunting, I guess.
So how does using drones benefit archaeological understanding?
What you can do is there's a few different things. The main thing is just taking photos. A little bit better than that is making 3D models of sites. And what that does is you stitch together various photos. So what you do is you fly in a grid pattern. Then what you do is you have some software that stitches all that together, and then it gives you a 3D model. So yeah, you can model pretty much a site without touching it, without being on the ground.
Excellent.
So yeah, there are more advanced things that are still a bit early in their evolution. Things like even like spinning LiDAR, like laser mapping from in the air as well, but it's still a bit early for that. The university has a unit like that, but we haven't flown it yet.
Okay. So in the future, how integral to the archaeological process do you believe drones will become?
I think they're going to get a lot easier as they get easier, because right now specialists fly them and maintain them. As they get easier, it's just another tool. It's just like, okay, how important is a camera to a dig these days? It's just a standard bit of kit. As this stuff gets easier, it'll just be a standard bit of kit.
Excellent. So how do you think drones have affected aerial photography over the years, and what do you think is the future for aerial photography?
Well, yeah, aerial photography goes back to days of kites and whatnot. So, from the 1900s or even before, I'm not exactly sure when. There were unmanned vehicles, even I think in Second World War. So they've been around for a while, particularly planes. The stuff that's changing now is a lot of the sensors and a lot of the technology is actually coming out of mobile phone development.
Okay.
So a lot of the sensors out of mobile phones, like the accelerometers and the gyros and stuff, are making little flight controllers cheap and easy. So what's happening now, before a plane would just have wings and a propeller, now what we've got is multiple propellers, so the stuff hovers, they hover really stably. Yeah, they're becoming easier to launch, easier to fly, and smaller, and that is pretty much coming out of mobile phone technology that's making the sensors more mainstream. So that's where it's at today. In future, probably a lot of the value will come from different sensors. So if you can do things like hyperspectral imaging, or we might even have a bit of a trial coming up, possibly with ground penetrating radar.
Oh wow.
So before, when you used to wheel stuff along, wherever, if you're terrain independent, you can go up the sides of mountains, or that's one of the good things. If you're terrain independent, you can pretty much, you don't have to walk there. So you can do that. So a lot of the future will be, the mainstream stuff will come out of being easier to use, being more affordable, being smaller. The more cutting edge stuff will be out of more sensors, fancy sensors.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we sort of maybe covered it a little bit now, but so can drones be used in archaeology in ways other than just photography, which is I think is sort of the more obvious one.
Well, even photography's got different levels. Like just taking a snapshot of a trench or a site, that's one thing. So just one photo from above is just basic photography. But when you get into this photogrammetry, it might be taking 500 photos and assembling hundreds of photos and making a 3D model. So a 3D model is more mapping and surveying rather than just photography. So there's blurred lines, and photography, I guess, is advancing. The sensor is the camera, but the software to stitch photos together, the software behind GPS, behind positioning, all comes together, pretty much taking photography into mapping and surveying. So that's that area. But like I said, other things like hyperspectral imaging, where you have different spectrum. Maybe you can use sensors to shoot through trees and find stone walls, where often stuff's overgrown over the centuries and whatnot. Maybe, things like if GPR works out, shooting through the ground. So it might be stuff beyond what we can normally see, pretty much flying terrain independent.
So, final question. What do you most enjoy about being involved in archaeology?
I like field work. I like having problem-led research. So Because what I do is not just archaeology. I worked in physics doing radiation mapping using unmanned vehicles. So we went to Fukushima where the nuclear accident was and mapped there for radiation. A new project I'm going to start at the end of the year is looking for landmines. So we'll be using spectral imaging to find where landmines are. Archaeology is another thing. So for me, it's not just about archaeology, but I like field work in general.
Yeah.
So problem-led research, taking technology out into the field and pretty much collecting data and pretty much bringing stuff to life.
Brilliant.